Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, February 22nd, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, let you know that we are a news podcast. So sometimes we do try to watch our language. Sometimes words do fly at the same time. There may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So how do we begin with this? Biden makes a surprise visit to Kiev, Ukraine. It's amazing for a man who's not a president of a country, has done more for a single country than he's done for his own constituents. That could be argued a little bit. I almost sounded a little bit conservative when I said that. But it's hard not to think otherwise. Biden did make a surprise visit for some odd reason for Ukraine. We are their biggest supporter, even though NATO has devoted some resources and troops to Ukraine. But it seems that with our politicians, they believe in the fact that we had to fight for Ukraine because Russia's invaded them, which is rightly so, but it shouldn't be just us. At the same time, it's another war. War is profiteering. And this is the one thing I want to make sure everybody understands this, because we have actually allowed well over 100,000 Ukrainians into the U.S. And a story that's going to come up very soon about those south of the border seeking asylum have a much stricter penalty that we're going to get into a little bit later. But again, Biden is seeking not only military aid, but foreign aid to Ukraine. And I'm sitting here wondering this entire time, how is it that Congress can give money overseas, but yet cannot give money to their own constituents? Because war is profit. That's the only thing I can come to. Because defense contractors, whenever they hear a war, it's Christmas. Now, the only people that are hating this are the Pentagon. Why? Because Army enlistment rates are low, have been at their lowest since the beginning of World War I, that Army enlistment rates are low. Mainly put, nobody wants to fight a rich man's war. But again, we shouldn't be surprised because Biden still thinks that we are fighting a good fight, and well, we should be. But again, America is not the world police. Moving right along, though, I wanted to cover George Santos. Why are we covering George Santos? Because this man went from saying he's Jewish, but he's not really Jewish. He went to college. He didn't really go to college. He was a successful business. Can't find the business. Why does this sound like Herschel Walker with a different name? Well, he actually has a story about going on Piers Morgan's show and really just admitting it. And at this point, you have to really wonder, what in the world are we truly doing with this detestable human being that can go on national television and say stuff like this?
Santos likes TV cameras, even when he knows he'll be asked to explain his litany of lies. Tonight, in an hour-long interview with Piers Morgan, Santos was confronted about some of those lies, starting with the one about graduating from college.
What's the simple explanation for why would you lie about something like that?
Expectation on society, the pressure, couldn't afford it, decided I wanted to run for office, although I had built a very credible business career. And I just didn't have that part of my biography that I could not give anything.
Did you not think that you'd be cool?
You know, I just went with it. I didn't think, I mean, if you're going to make up a lie, are you thinking at all? I just think it was a stupid decision in my part. Very stupid decision that I regret every day.
So he has regret about it. Back with me, Mark McKinnon, John Berman, Natasha Alfred, and Harry Littman. John, you lie about going to Harvard. Just kidding.
George Santos was my roommate.
Yeah, he thinks so.
We totally were on the volleyball team together, right?
He thinks so. Are you annoyed with me for playing more George Santos? Are you one of the people who's like, why are we giving this guy airtime?
Look, it's fascinating. No, but
I think so too. I think it's
don't-
fascinating. It's mesmerizing in some way.
You know, but he's like a lying liar who lies. And I get that. I don't know what he could have said here that would have changed anyone's view of him. That's not to say, though, that I didn't find it interesting watching him try to weave this web.
Well, we had a really unique new defense today in this interview, which is, well, I got away with it before.
That was bizarre.
Right?
He said, why'd you do it in 2022? Oh, yeah, because I did it in 2020. No one cared.
That's interesting.
And I'm a terrible liar. That's the news.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty good liar, actually. Prolific and
But
imaginative.
he's caught all the time. So that makes him not a good liar.
Yeah.
He's caught constantly.
And this
Well,
appeal to ethos, emotion, right? Like society placed this pressure on me to go to college and I couldn't do it. So I was forced to. It's so interesting how he's trying to play on emotions. Yet again, another example of the intentional manipulation.
Well,
And she does have a wonderful point. That for the fact of the matter that George Santos, which I'm trying not to give this excrement of a human being any airtime on anything podcast related, but they do bring up an interesting point. This man has been caught in lie after lie after lie after lie, denying it, goes on Piers Morgan's show, simply says, yes, I did it. Well, why'd you lie? Oh, pressures of society, just wanting to pad my resume, but my business acumen should be more than enough to make me a politician. Dude, whatever credibility that you think you have has been long, long, long gone. But here's the messed up part. He's elected. The only people that can remove him at this point is the Ethics Committee. And I've said this before, Ethics Committee is under Republican control because it falls on the House of Representatives. So Kevin McCarthy and friends will have to decide whether or not they want to keep a lying politician in their ranks or remove him. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't think they're going to remove him. I don't. Because they need the numbers. Republicans do hold the majority of House Representatives. True. But to oust one of their own would basically be a cut amongst themselves. They just don't want to admit it. So you know what they sit there and say? They usually give the typical BS. Oh, well, the ethics committee will have to look into him. He just admitted he lied. This should be the easiest slam dunk for the ethics committee to go, if he lied about his resume, imagine what he'll lie about when certain laws and bills and measures are put in front of him. Do you really want a guy like that to be in charge of something that can affect, if not hundreds, if not thousands, but millions of Americans? But that's the contradiction. He comes out and says, "Yeah, well, he's trying to catch mercy and favor." And honestly, it shouldn't work. But the messed up part about it is, I'm just waiting for Fox News to try to spin it. Well, the pressures of society is what led to him having to make these decisions. And, if I was in his shoes, I wonder if I could do the same thing. I'm waiting for it. Fox News, and I keep on saying that, and Fox News is not a real news station. It really isn't. Fox News is basically state-run propaganda with the Fox brand on it. Even more so that they didn't call themselves a news station. In the most recent lawsuit, they called themselves an entertainment network. That alone should tell you everything. And this next story I got, speaking of Kevin McCarthy, the new House Speaker, he did something that was weird at the same time suspect. He basically gave footage of the January 6th insurrection by homegrown terrorists to probably one of the three-headed hydras of Fox News.
This morning, Fox News host Tucker Carlson says he's been given access to more than 40,000 hours of unreleased surveillance footage from the January 6th attack.
They have not released any of it from January 6th. And January 6th, of course, is a transformative event in this country. It's been used to change the country.
It's unclear where Carlson's team was reviewing the footage or who they got it from. But according to multiple reports, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy granted Tucker's team access to the video. McCarthy's office did not respond to an ABC News request for comment. Carlson has repeatedly spread conspiracy theories about January 6th, saying this on the one-year anniversary.
Looking back, you could probably call what happened on January 6th a riot. We have called it that, but really only just a riot, maybe just barely.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, who sat on the January 6th committee, branded the release of the January 6th footage an ethical collapse, tweeting, "What security precautions were taken to keep this from becoming a roadmap for 2024 insurrection?" Carlson has already claimed that some of the new footage appears to show contradictions.
Some of our smartest producers have been there. looking at this stuff and trying to figure out what it means and how it contradicts or not the story that we've been told for more than 2 years. We think already that in some ways it does contradict that story.
This controversy comes just days after a court filing revealed private messages from Fox News personalities, including Carlson, showing they doubted allegations of voter fraud after the 2020 election, even while publicly pushing the false narrative. Now, Carlson did not provide any more details about the video, saying his team's findings will be made public soon. Speaker McCarthy has previously said releasing the video is about transparency.
Yes, transparency. From the party that does not know the definition of the word. How in the world is not, I mean, let's ask this question here. Kevin McCarthy sends footage of the January 6th insurrection / attempted terrorism day to possibly one of the worst three-headed Hydra hosts of Fox News. He sends it to Tucker Carlson, a man whose first name rhymes with, you get the idea. This is nothing more. This is by far the greatest spin campaign ever known to man. Because what they're going to do with this footage on Fox News, they're going to try to cut it up, dice it up, and they're going to try to use what they can instead and say, well, was it really an insurrection, or was this an act of patriotism? They weren't trying, as you can see, they weren't trying to go through the Capitol. No, they were protesting, and their protest was taken as ultra aggressive in this country. Only because of the weaponized FBI, they will do it. Mark my words. Tucker Carlson now has access to the same footage as the January 6th Commission, which was under Democrats last year. For the entire year, they decided to run hearings on, interviewed Capitol police officers, interviewed various former Trump staff. I guarantee you what's going to happen next is they are going to try to spin it. They are going to try to make themselves, because again, Fox News was implicated in this. Fox News actually implicated in a lot of things. Sexual harassment suits, discrimination, worker firings. They were, actually the funny part is Trump's lawyers and the lawyers for Fox News are having a field day with the amount of billable hours they have to do for a former failure in chief, and really a failed company. I kid you not. But watch as they will try to spin this, and you will have some people believe it. Well, the January 6th Commission, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to undermine the former January 6th Commission's findings because they have already said there and said at the end of the year, they pushed what they believe was suggested criminal acts that can be indicted to the Department of Justice, who, by the way, has yet to announce anything. So that's the reason why Kevin McCarthy's like, well, let's just go ahead and get this and try to spin it and try to curry favor, because outside of Fox News, who else did he send it to? I didn't see him send it to ABC. He didn't send it to he didn't send it to CBS. He didn't send it to NBC. He didn't even send it to their friendly Newsmax or The Blaze or any other or the Young Turks. He didn't send it to any of these news outlets. So one has to ask, why did he send to Fox News? I'm just saying, this is the reason why I point this out. If you're going to be equal, send it to all. But the fact of the matter is, they are simply trying to pad what is coming next, which tells me that either the Department of Justice is about to announce something very soon, or they're trying to get ahead of it. One of the two just looks shady, but then again, it's Tucker Carlson. Why are we surprised? He's just basically a younger Sean Hannity, just slimier and has that kind of face you just want to punch. But in the meantime, we do have some news, also especially in Black History Month. Virginia will have its first Black Congresswoman, Jennifer McKellen, as she has won her special election, which was just recently announced. So she will be Virginia's first Black Congresswoman in Virginia's 4th District. This goes to show you that she did actually beat her opponent. But again, that's Black history. The fact that she will be representing Virginia's 4th Congressional District. That's the word I want to get to. And she's the first Black woman to ever represent the Virginia Commonwealth in Congress. Beautiful thing. It is a really beautiful thing, considering the fact that she won by landslide. I think she won with almost 70% of the vote. 70% of the vote for her state, and she won easily. So definitely congratulations to her, making history as the first Black Congresswoman for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Definitely want to, in the world's Black History Month, celebrate the wins. We definitely need to. Speaking of things that need a win, the EPA has announced, especially what happened with the train derailment. is that they're saying that more needs to be done. I'm just going to say this thing that the trade company, Norfolk Southern, of course, you guys got to remember, derailed, having toxic chemicals. The trains were not equipped with the right kind of brakes that were put on, that were actually instituted by a rule under the Obama administration, was actually stricken off by the Trump administration. And of course, they've already had the transit authority come out and say, had those brakes been on there, they could have actually prevented or at least mitigated the damage from these toxic chemicals that have actually spurned into the oil, that have turned into the soil and water. And again, makes sense and is concerned, despite the EPA's numerous findings saying that the water is safe, you can go home. But we've heard this song and dance before. Now the EPA is saying that Norfolk Southern can do a lot more, as in pay everybody, as in pay for all the damages and cleanup. I'll go one further. Where are the criminal charges?
The EPA is requiring Norfolk Southern Railway to clean up after the train derailment that spilled toxic chemicals in East Palestine, Ohio. The agency says the company could have been more aggressive in their initial response, and the move comes as authorities try to reassure residents that it's safe to live in their own homes. ABC's Mona Kozar-Abdi has the latest.
There's the Caroline. State and federal authorities telling skeptical residents the water is safe.
We just need to continue to
test it.
Yeah, we just need to continue to test them. And we think things are all right. We know things are all right now, and we just need to make sure that in the future they're all right as well.
This as the EPA legally obligated Norfolk Southern to identify and clean up contaminated soil and water.
My job is to make sure we respond to this environmental disaster appropriately and hold the polluter accountable.
Norfolk Southern telling ABC they are, quote, committed to thoroughly and safely cleaning the site, and we are reimbursing residents for the disruption this has caused in their lives. The rail company now says they've gathered 1.5 million gallons of contaminated water and 4,500 cubic yards of contaminated soil. That's enough to fill roughly 1.5 Olympic-sized pools. Though Norfolk Southern is on the hook for all cleanup costs, East Palestine Mayor Trent Conaway calling President Biden's trip and announcement of aid for Ukraine a slap in the face.
We don't want to be political pawns. We don't want to be a soundbite or a news bite. We just want to go back to living our lives.
The president making several calls from Poland to officials managing the crisis on the ground, including the governors of Ohio and Pennsylvania. The mayor of East Palestine not on that list.
And Mona Kozar-Abdi joins me live now from Columbiana, Ohio, with more. Mona, former President Trump is visiting the area today. What can we expect from that visit?
That's right, Diane. Now, ahead of his visit, the former president, has been very vocal about the Biden administration's response, saying that it wasn't until, he took credit for even FEMA sending help, saying that it wasn't until he announced his visit that federal officials came to East Palestine. So you can expect him to, again, be very critical of the Biden administration. Now, the Biden administration was quick to respond, saying that it was actually the Trump administration that withdrew some hazardous train-related regulations. But we're noticing that at the state and local level, there has been a pushback against the politicization of this disaster. You heard the mayor in my story saying that they don't want to be political pawns. And even he's come around saying that he would welcome President Biden if he were to visit East Palestine. Diane.
We also saw the governor and other officials drinking the tap water there. What are you hearing from residents? Are they feeling reassured?
Yeah, you saw it was Governor DeWine, the governor of Pennsylvania, and the EPA director in that woman, Carolyn Brown's home, drinking the water straight from her tap. And the governor of Ohio has been saying, and has been very vocal, that the water is safe to drink, and he did it himself. Now, the people that we spoke with, they hear the governor, but they're not listening. They say that they feel more safe drinking bottled water. There have been cases of bottled water donated to this community, and some people are even cooking with bottled water. And so I brought that to the governor of Ohio. I asked DeWine, I said, what is your message to people who are still relying on bottled water and are not, do not feel or skeptical that the water is safe? And he said that it is their prerogative to drink bottled water if they want to. But he says all he can do is just keep reassuring them and showing them that the tests are coming back, that the water is safe to drink. Diane.
All right, Mona Kozar-Abdi in Columbia.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, I don't hear criminal charges. I mean, how many times have we seen train derailments, oil spills, things of that nature, to where a corporation is responsible for it, they may pay a fine. They may have an escrow account to pay for all the damages that have occurred, but you don't hear criminal charges. I've never understood that. Even in this case, Norfolk Southern, with the fact that they've caused a lot of destruction and damage to a town, which, again, I give the EPA credit. Norfolk Southern should be doing more. Yes, they should be reimbursing everybody. They should be reimbursing the town, its citizens, all the above. No problem. Now, blank check? Yeah, as much as it takes to basically make sure everybody's well compensated and that everybody who's lost something, whether it's work, income, home, things of that nature, they should be well compensated. Even if it means Norfolk Southern goes bankrupt, which we know it's not. That also being said, however, it does ask the question, where are the criminal charges in all this? Sure, the EPA may fine them. Norfolk Southern will pay a fine, but they still get to operate as normal. I mean, it's just like Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo can commit identity theft on a massive scale. They may lose a CEO, they may pay a fine, but they're still able to operate as if nothing happened. How? If I did identity theft, I'm in jail. The corporation does identity theft, they pay a fine. Norfolk Southern caused an ecological disaster. Nobody from Norfolk Southern will be seeing a courtroom nor a jail, but they'll be paying a fine. Yes, I think more can be done. And shout out to the mayor there. The mayor says, "Look, yeah, Biden may have visited Ukraine. He could have actually came here, but he says, don't use this as political stand up. If you want to come help us, come see the damage. Cool, help us come see the damage, but don't try to use us." Although I said it before, Biden went to Kiev, gave them military and foreign aid. And yes, the FEMA has been sent, the EPA has been sent to assist and monitor with the cleanup, but Norfolk Southern is still on the hook. But I haven't seen any wallets being opened on their side to compensate people. At the same time, you have former failure in chief Donald Trump acting presidential by going to visit the site and then trying to take credit for it. Well, unless I arrived, FEMA listens to me, okay? FEMA's the best. When I do something, FEMA jumps up, okay? No, because Donald Trump is too busy trying to avoid jail time himself. At the same time, it was his administration, as you heard in the story, it was his administration that actually got the electronic pneumatic brakes removed as part of a regulation for trains carrying hazardous materials. It was instituted under the Obama administration, removed under the Trump administration. Those trains themselves did not have those brakes. Something Trump can stand on, actually be proud of, instead of taking credit for something someone else did. But again, that does bring up the point. Why is Biden overseas when he should be actually here? Because again, that's where, now again, I'm not conservative, but if I'm being honest, that's where I would be attacking. You're so busy fighting a war with Putin, but you have people that need to be reassured here. And don't get me wrong about the EPA and the governor there trying to drink water from the tap. I'm not saying that's not staged, but I get it. You drink water from the tap, you're going to prove it to us. You're going to prove to us by going to someone's home, drinking the tap water and saying it's completely safe, cheering it like it's like you guys just won the Super Bowl. And I'm like, I get it. You're trying to reassure folks. But here's how you reassure folks. Give them what they ask for. If they want bottled water, give them bottled water. If they feel safer with it, then you shouldn't question it. Because think about this for a second. How many times before this event started that there was a media blackout on everything? Like if you actually went on Twitter, on social media, and noticed a lot of people are saying something is happening in the city and no one's talking about it. It's a media blackout for at least a day or so. Then all of a sudden, now we hear all this stuff out. So I can't blame the residents for how they feel, because again, if you sit there and tell me the water is safe, the soil is safe, you can go back to your homes. We've seen what happens when areas like Flint, Michigan, like in Jackson, Mississippi, where the water systems are terrible, where decades of neglect of upgrading and maintaining water pipes have led to this kind of stuff. You can't blame residents for going, nah, I'm going to stick to bottled water for a while. Thank you very much. And it's amazing. He goes, well, it's their prerogative. Well, okay, it's their prerogative, but they're your constituents. They feel a certain way. Well, I just have to keep reassuring them. So what are you going to do? Go to everybody's house, drink tap water and say, cool, you could do that. It's really a fighting an uphill battle. You're not going to win. The thing about it is, you know how you make me, and this is just me, you want to know how you make the citizens there feel more comfortable? The corporation that actually caused this to happen needs to be held liable. That's what changes everything. That'll definitely get the rest of the attention going, oh snap, someone from Norfolk Southern may actually be going to jail over this. Maybe something is getting done outside the cleanup. But I digress. But other news that has came out, the family of Malcolm X, along with Ben Crump, is filing a lawsuit over the assassination plot of Malcolm X.
We're following breaking news out of New York City now. Attorney Ben Crump is suing the city's police department and other government agencies. He claims they covered up evidence connected to the assassination of civil rights leader Malcolm X. NBC News digital reporter Maya Eaglin is following that story for us and joins us now. So Maya, what specifically is Crump alleging here?
Hey, Aaron, this all comes exactly 58 years since the assassination of Malcolm X in Washington Heights, New York. He was killed while addressing his organization of Afro-American Unity in 1965. Now, as you mentioned, his family and civil rights attorney Ben Crump announced today that they plan on suing the NYPD and other government agencies for the circumstances surrounding the murder. The wrongful death lawsuit alleges that factual evidence was concealed from the family and from the men convicted of the crimes in the assassination. Malcolm X's family is now suing for $100 million. Here's more of what one of Malcolm X's daughters had to say in Manhattan today.
For years, our family has fought for the truth to come to light concerning his murder, and we'd like our father to receive the justice that he deserves.
Attorney Ben Crump also said they intend to take depositions from people involved who are still alive. Aaron.
And Maya, the role these agencies played in his death has been really a matter of dispute for decades, right?
That's right. There are a ton of theories and documentaries and reports about this assassination. You might remember about a year and a half ago, 2 of the men who were convicted in connection with the murder of Malcolm X were exonerated. They had always maintained their innocence, but spent decades in prison. Sadly, one of the men passed away in 2009, but the city of New York settled lawsuits filed on their behalf, agreeing to pay $36 million. A lot of new developments here, so we'll continue staying on top of this case as it unfolds. Aaron.
Yep. Well, at Black History Month. No, it's happening. And of course, for all those that have followed Black history, we've always had that story that yes, that the government allegedly had a plot to assassinate Malcolm X. The government also admitted that they had a plot to assassinate Martin Luther King Jr. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that, yes, them suing the NYPD for $100 million, that includes the CIA and the FBI. Because keep in mind, during this whole time, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, other civil rights figures were heavily monitored and recorded. I'm just, like I said, they go back almost ever since Hoover. Hoover had everybody on tape. And again, during the time of civil rights leadership, they had a lot of these prominent figures watched and recorded. There was actually a movie on Amazon Prime. I forgot the name of it already. One Night in Miami, where even though it was loosely documented that Malcolm X felt like he was always being followed, so he began to document everything that was going on with him in the event that he was killed. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that yes, will the government admit this, and if they do so, does that open up another can of worms? Yes. Because then you have to admit that there were a lot of sketchy stuff that was going on during that time, and it was always directed at prominent civil rights figures. That's going to open up the can of worms, and I'm really curious to see what the government's going to do regarding this lawsuit, just because the simple fact of the matter that, yes, this does have implications that if they do admit it. It's going to be interesting, especially with Ben Crump at the helm. Ben Crump seems to be almost everywhere nowadays, doesn't he? But I digress. Move right along, guys. Omaha, Nebraska, a city that I thought I would never talk about, has had a reduction in their crime violence. Actually, 74%, to be honest. They actually are at their lowest point since 2010, and a lot of it has to deal with their Omaha 360 model. Now, The funny thing with this Omaha 360 mile, I'm going to point out, is how they actually attacked it from a three-pronged situation. So this is actually it right here, where they sat there and said, this is part of how they were able to reduce their crime, police complaints, things of that nature. Number one, create more venues where police and community can interact consistently. Number two, diversify police force and criminal justice system. Number three, implement police training on culture/racial bias. Include more and better bias screening in the hiring process. Number four, institute police training to address mental health issues or situations. Number five, expand training for youth and adults on how to best engage with police. Number six, continue to implement and use body cameras for standards and penalties. Number seven, continue to improve and make complaint process more transparent. Hold officers accountable/accountability. Number eight, monitor and address racial profiling /use of force. Officers report incident. Number nine, address disproportionate stops, arrests, sentencing, and incarceration. And number 10, independent review or process for officer-involved shootings. Now, we on this podcast and others have said the exact same thing on police reform and how it can work. And yet we see it right there in 10 steps, how Omaha, a single city, was able to reduce their crime. And it's amazing where a lot of it implement police training on culture/racial bias, institute police training to address mental health issues or situations, monitor and address racial profiling /use of force, and again, address disproportionate stops, arrests, sentencing, and incarceration. And they even help with the community, expand training for youth and adults on how best to engage with police. Which again, that can be iffy because how a lot of us engage with police, we're usually very cordial. It's just the fact we sometimes get disrespected first. But then again, it can go either way. But the reason why I wanted to point this out is because I have been saying for the longest time, if those things were implemented at a police force level, crime drops. If you invest in the community, you actually take a community that does not get the same financial, education, literacy opportunities as other places, and you institute that, crime drops. If we retrain the police to be better police, crime drops. It's amazing that a city in Omaha, Nebraska did exactly this, and they saw the reduction in their crime by 74%. So for all those naysayers out there saying that police reform doesn't work, Exhibit A. Come at me, bro. That being said, we're going to move on to the next story, guys, because again, Biden is not having a good week. The Biden administration, I should say, is not having a good week. Being in Ukraine when he really should have been at Norfolk Southern to actually solve the problem with the East End and the people there. And now the Biden administration has came out with a new rule for immigrants seeking asylum at the border. A new border rule once Title 42 ends. I don't think a lot of people are going to like it.
The ACLU says that it will sue the Biden administration after the White House unveiled a proposal it says will stop mass chaos and disorder at the U.S.-Mexico border once the Trump COVID-era restriction Title 42 expires in May. The proposed rule would be the strictest border control measure of the administration to date. It would penalize asylum seekers who cross the border illegally or fail to apply for asylum in other nations they cross on their way to the U.S. The rule would become active in May and expire after 2 years if adopted. More than 300 civil, humanitarian, immigrant rights groups have already condemned the proposed rule since the Biden administration announced it was considering the plan last month. And joining us now is ACLU civil rights lawyer Lee Glerndt. Mr. Glerndt, in a statement, the ACLU referred to the proposal as a, quote, asylum ban. That's a tough description for the rule. Is it fair? Is it a ban?
Absolutely. The effect will absolutely be to ban asylum seekers. There are only cosmetic changes to what the Trump administration did. And it's basically a combination of two asylum bans the Trump administration enacted. We challenged with our partners, we challenged both of them and one in court. This has very few changes that legally matter to what the Trump administration did. And it will mean that thousands of legitimate asylum seekers will never really get a chance to apply for asylum.
Based on what you're saying there, it doesn't sound like there's much of a distinction between this proposed rule and Trump's transit asylum ban, is there?
That's exactly right. The Biden administration has put in a few small ways for people to apply for asylum. We, of course, welcome additional ways for people to apply for asylum. But at the same time, it's giving those few spots. It's taken away the basic right to apply for asylum if you get to the U.S. border. So the end result will be just people being routinely denied asylum, the same as under the Trump administration. To the extent that the Biden administration is saying, well, there's going to be a few additional spots for people to lawfully apply for asylum, that will not make up for what is basically a ban.
And of course, you can't separate politics from governing here. Do you think it's possible the Biden administration purposely is seeking a strict rule here, knowing that groups like yours will come out against the proposal and ultimately dilute or dismantle it?
So I don't know if we are entering into their calculus, but I definitely think that politics have played an enormous role in border policy. The Title 42 policy, we believe, has remained in place for this long, and because of politics, absolutely. And I think most of what's happening at the border is about politics, absolutely. And I would just say, to your introduction, we hope Title 42 will end. The Title 42 policy will end in May, but there's no guarantee. And a lot of states are saying they're going to sue to keep it in place. They've already tried to do that. So I think we have a lot of battles ahead of us, but there's no question in our mind that politics are entering into this, because we certainly believe that the Biden administration has to be looking at the law and know that these policies were struck down previously, and the distinctions they're offering between their policies and the Trump administration policies don't really go to the legal vulnerability of them.
Which he does have a point. He has a point, because for all those that are wondering, so what Biden administration has actually did is that they have a new rule for asylum seekers, that if you did enter the U.S. illegally, claiming asylum, but in places to where you did not claim asylum, or you crossed countries where you did not claim asylum at first, on the way here basically makes you invalid for asylum, which again is a worse rule than what Trump's Title 42 does, because Title 42 was basically due to COVID restrictions that actually halted people from crossing the border and into the U.S., which is basically the reason why you see a lot of migrant camps, things that nature set up near the border. This is where the Biden administration gets it wrong. It's in the fact that the number of Ukrainians that they have allowed into the U.S., well over 100,000. So let me get this straight. You can allow 100,000 Ukrainians from a war-torn country in the U.S., no problem, yet you have, if not thousands, but millions of those from other countries seeking asylum from war-torn areas, cartel, drug areas, things of that nature. And they're now being told that unless you file asylum on countries on the way up here to get here, it nullifies your chances. Yeah, this is why I think the Biden administration is going to be taking a little bit of an L this week on multiple areas, because again, this goes back to what I said about immigration. Immigration can be easily fixed. The problem is you have the Democrats wanting to push forward, and I say Democrats by only a handful, because not every Democrat is on board with immigration. And Republicans, forget about it. They have yet to produce a plan for immigration outside of a wall. Whereas the only thing that's actually came out of fruition was the DREAM Act, in which that if immigrants that did do civil service, things of that nature, were given the path to citizenship. And that was under Obama. That was the last piece of immigration reform that we've actually had. And it's been a couple of years since then. We could have easily fixed the immigration system by basically removing the backlog, adding more judges, adding more resources to it, and actually cleaning up that area. Because how in the world have other countries figured out immigration, and we are in 2023 and still trying to figure this out? And when it comes down to systems, I don't know what's worse, immigration or the VA. It's kind of a tie. I'm just going to be honest with you on that. But yes, the Biden administration not really looking so good this week with old Joe in Ukraine. Although his wife Jill, Dr. Jill Biden, is visiting Africa, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this as far as why does a Mormon church have a $32 billion investment portfolio? And yet they wonder why I say tax the churches. really want to know why that's not a bigger story. The Mormon church that you guys just saw was caught having a $32 billion investment portfolio. The Mormon church has a $32 billion investment portfolio and sat there and said that if they disclosed it to the SEC, which is the Security and Exchange, pretty much the police of Wall Street, the simple fact of the matter is they didn't disclose it to the SEC because it would have negative consequences. No shit, Sherlock. You're a church that has a $32 billion investment portfolio, a church who does not pay taxes. I can see how that would look, but but again, they're not the only ones. There are plenty of other religious organizations out there that do not get taxed. And if we looked hard enough, we would find a bunch of money there. Because I can already tell you at the bat, religious organizations, especially here in the South, rake in billions every year. You can only imagine where that money is going. And so the fact of the matter is the Mormon church, again, admitted that they created hundreds of shell companies just to hide the money. How is this not bigger news? How is it that the IRS, who just got an influx, it's like, hey, humongous target, audit them. But they're going to pay a $5 million settlement of covering up their $32 billion. They will be allowed to operate as business as usual. And I am asking this question: how is it that we have not got around to taxing churches yet? Because apparently, as long as you have a church, you're covered. And apparently tax-free. But I just thought that was crazy that story has not gained bigger traction to me. I'm all I can say is, and why are we not taxing churches? Why are we not taxing churches? That's all I'm saying. But again, speaking of money, financial literacy, something that we should have all had, but there are those out there, especially during Black History Month, that are trying to basically break the cycle and actually institute those type of things to our youth to hopefully make them better financially responsible adults.
Part of our Black History Month coverage, we are highlighting people actively working to close inequality gaps in America.
Yeah, a great story here. This morning, we continue with looking at the importance of financial literacy, specifically for African Americans. NBC News reporter Maya England has more.
I did not grow up in a household where we talked about money.
Daisha Kennedy created a platform called The Broke Black Girl after spending years in banking and noticing the lack of culturally relevant resources.
When I think of culturally relevant, I think that it centers me as a Black person, a Black woman, and the challenges that I face day to day, creating tools that are easily usable for me. A lot of our frustration and aggravation comes from us using unhealthy timelines and expectations that was placed on us either by other people or by social media.
One study found that on average, Black people answered 38% of personal finance questions correctly, while white people answered 55% correctly.
What has led to this gap in financial literacy for the Black community?
Being denied access to wealth building opportunities, such as higher paying jobs, home ownership.
Daisha says a lot of this can also be tied to education. Another report found that only 25 states required students to complete a personal finance course prior to high school graduation as of 2022.
How do you think we can close this gap in financial literacy?
Education is not a special privilege. It's a right that we all should care about when we are wanting to see change for our economy. And when I think of literacy and education, we have a responsibility as educators to make sure that no one is left behind. My hope for the future is the reason why I had to do this work starts to go away, that we start to understand and accept in our world that this is a necessity. I get to see Black women get relief in real time, which is not always a luxury that we get to enjoy. I get to see in real time that by using some of the resources that I have created, that they're able to grant themselves some financial relief and even mental relief.
Maya Eaglin, NBC News.
And she's 100% right that when it comes down to it, why is this not being taught? Like, I can imagine when I was in school many moons ago, financial literacy was not a part of it. Sure, we could have taken accounting as an elective, but accounting didn't really teach you what it should have done. It didn't teach you how to balance a checkbook. It didn't teach you how to do taxes. It didn't teach you about credit. It was literally bare boned. But yes, unless you're in a preparatory school or a private school, you may not get the financial literacy that you should be getting. Because I said before, if you get kids early and teach them financial literacy and teach them about credit and teach them about banking and teach them about loans, the fact of the matter is that they're not being taught about this. But if they decide to go to college, and these banks will sit there and say, hey, we're going to give you a loan for you to go to college with this insane amount of money, with this insane amount of APR, with this insane amount of years. Or they say, like, oh, don't worry about it because you're going to get a great job. You'll be able to pay this back. No problem. That's bullshit. Because I'm going to tell you why. It's not the same anymore. And the thing that they don't want to admit is that it's true. That, yes, I will say one thing. It gets more difficult to find those that'll sit there and be like, yeah, it is possible. It is possible to still get a high paying job. Although if you look at the job market now, especially in the IT sector, it's not good, especially in some areas. Like, you can sit there and say it's chat GPI. You can sit there and say it's autonomy. You can sit there and say companies are being a little bit more stringent or they're not paying enough and things of that nature. But when it comes down to it, the high-paying jobs are not as abundant as they used to be. But again, imagine, like I said before, as the lady there, the broke black girl, which again on social media, if you want to check her out, has a wonderful point. Imagine if financial literacy was taught not only in high school but middle school as well. If we actually equipped our next generation with the tools they need to actually be more financially fiscable adults. Try saying that 5 times fast. It makes a world of a difference. And also it's breaking generational curses because, again, we don't really find out for a lot of us, unless you're going into finance or banking or things of that nature, you're not going to know about what to do with money outside of the fact of the consequences of your actions when you had it. That's pretty much it. So I get where she's coming from on that. And again, financial literacy I am all for it. But, with the internet right now, with me, approaching level 40, and a lot of us approaching levels 40 and above, it's still not too late for us to learn and be able to pass on what we know. But yes, education needs to change for the better. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we'll be here all night, especially when I talk about public education, the fact that it's gutted like a fish every year. But speaking of things that are gutted like a fish that involve children, we talked about this story last week, and as we can see, it's starting to get traction. Because not only is that company under scrutiny, they actually interviewed former managers who, by their reactions, it's slightly disturbing about what happened at this meat processing plant.
Night, alarming accusations about what happened inside this Nebraska meatpacking plant. Migrant children like this boy, who federal investigators say was put to work in a job that can be incredibly dangerous.
Could anybody mistake these children for adults? I don't think there's any mistaking these children for adults.
Investigators say the child workers arrived for their shift at night, many of them from Central America. They were employed by cleaning company Packer Sanitation Services, Inc. to sanitize equipment inside the plant. PSSI has 17,000 workers. Of those, investigators say the company employed more than 100 children, aged 13 to 17, and 13 plants across 8 states.
Last October, labor investigators say they found nearly 24 children, some as young as 13, working here inside this massive slaughterhouse, cleaning up blood and animal parts in the overnight shift.
Nebraska immigrant advocate Audrey Lutz has been helping some of the child workers from Guatemala, who she says are scared to talk to us.
I think these youth are afraid because they don't know the systems in this country that were meant to protect them because those systems failed.
We spoke to a former PSSI manager who asked that we conceal their identity.
Did you ever see kids, people who looked like kids, working inside these plants?
Yeah.
How young do you think they were?
Probably as young as 12.
How did that strike you when you saw someone that young working a job like this?
It kind of makes you sick. When you walk through the plant, you can't walk through it without getting animal parts on you or blood all over you.
The company disciplined an employee in 2021, according to an internal PSSI report reviewed by NBC News. The employee, who handled hiring for multiple plants, was found to have hired the same known minor 2 separate times in the span of 6 months under 2 different names. The punishment, according to the document, a demotion and a hiring policy review.
Were managers ever worried that they'd be disciplined for hiring children?
No.
The former manager says the more common outcome was to hold the frontline worker accountable.
You would just terminate the child, terminate the undocumented worker.
In December, the company signed a consent decree saying they would abide by child labor laws. PSSI telling NBC News our company has a strong corporate commitment to our zero tolerance policy against employing anyone under the age of 18 and fully shares the Labor Department's objective of ensuring full compliance at all locations, and says they are taking steps to prevent individuals at the local level from circumventing our wide-ranging procedures. Shannon Roboyedo was the lead investigator for the Labor Department.
How is this investigation different from what you've seen before?
I've never seen child labor violations to this extent. Just the sheer number of kids that were working. I've never had an employer or their representative impede my investigation like this, just so brazenly.
PSSI says it was fully cooperative in the Labor Department's investigation.
Oh, I'm sure they were I'm pretty sure they were fully investigated. But it amazes me that that actually happened. That you still caught multiple children, some of them undocumented, working your facility, and still have the nerve to sit there and say, well, we did everything we were supposed to do, so what's the problem? The problem is that you face no fines. You faced no jail time. I feel like this is a repeat theme on this podcast, that companies that are caught doing so nefarious things only pay a fine, and that's it. Allowed to operate as need be. There is no indictment, there is no jail time or penalty. It's just paying a fine and keeping it pushing. But this is the reason why we have child labor laws. And you think for all the types of human trafficking that they look at all the auspicious places, you would think a meatpacking plant, especially that has kids working overnight during a third shift, doesn't seem to pop up on anybody's radar. Figure that one out. But we will follow that story as it gets deeper, because I don't think that's the end, as more and more scrutiny gets put on this particular PSSI company. Moving right along, guys, this is the reason why I keep saying, especially when it comes to justice, I know Richard Pryor said it best, when it comes to justice, go downtown, that's who you find, just us. There's a reason why the criminal law, the system itself, needs an overhaul. The system isn't broken, it's working as designed. It was never just for us. Even more so, where again in southern states, we are finding more and more of these stories of men who were convicted, put in prison, completely innocent, but it took an act of Congress to get them out. And this is just another story.
The last time we saw Lamar Johnson, he couldn't take a walk on his own or pop into a coffee shop.
I didn't have a lot of choices where I came from.
Because he'd spent most of the last 28 years in this Jefferson City prison for a crime he didn't commit. Back in 1995, Johnson was convicted for the murder of a man at this house in St. Louis and sentenced to life. Years later, 2 other people confessed to being the real killers, and the only key eyewitness in the case recanted. But the circuit attorney could do nothing about it, mostly because of a law that only allowed motions for new trials within 15 days of a conviction. Too late for Johnson.
Have you given up hope that you'll get out?
No, because that's all I have.
And then last year, the Missouri legislature passed a bill to make it easier for prosecutors to get hearings in cases like Johnson's. And just this week,
it is hereby ordered that the motion of the circuit attorney of the 22nd Judicial Circuit filed herein for the benefit of Lamar Johnson is granted.
A judge vacated his conviction, setting him free. Johnson listening to the theme from Rocky on his first ride home.
Back on the streets.
Everything's different now. The cars, the cell phones, the daily routine.
I worked in prison all my life, but that was for 30 years. I don't have any savings or retirement or anything. So I have to get out and do it now.
There's a question of restitution and whether the state should owe you some money here.
Well, unfortunately, Missouri doesn't allow for that. I'm not bitter about it, but it just seems like it's kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, though. That the person who is exonerated can't even get the same assistance that a person who's on parole can get.
Are you bitter at all?
If you try to hold on to that hate or bitterness or anger or whatever it is that you're feeling, and you bring it out, you're just trading one prison for another.
One of the things you said to me a year and a half ago was that the first thing you would do if you got out was go see your mom.
Right.
Did that happen?
It did. And so I was able to go home and actually hug my mother for longer than that.
Now, after going into prison when his kids were just babies, he'll finally get to meet their kids.
Seeing them enjoy life, especially because I didn't get to do that with my own daughters. And so spoil them, give them milk and cookies after hours, and just little small things like that.
And he'll be there for the big moments, too.
I have a daughter that's getting married in April, and I'm going to be able to be there.
Have you ever left St. Louis?
I've never been outside of St. Louis. Just to be able to fly in a plane, see the ocean, walk on the beach.
And with that freedom comes a fight for others like him.
There's a purpose in the pain that we all feel, and that our obligation is to learn from that experience and then to teach others, to help them to avoid it or to help them go through it. If there's a lot more Lamars in the system around this country, and we can do better. We can certainly do better.
Hallie Jackson.
Master, teach me your ways. Let me tell you something before I get into that. That man, you realize, look, let me tell you something. That man is on a level that is he's unshakable. There's a word I would love to say, but that's a word I probably shouldn't use in this podcast, but he is un-F-wittable. Un-F-wittable. This man is completely at peace, holds no grudge, has no anger, is just thankful, wants to spend time with his family, wants to spend time with his daughter, to see the beach for the first time in his life. That man is content and un-F-wittable. I wish I could be at that level that man is on, because that man right there is one that they will never get him. But on the other side, 28 years for something that you didn't even do, innocent the entire time. But because of convictions, because of a law in Missouri, the law in Missouri at the time was that appeals have to happen. Appeals for an appeal court has to happen 15 days after conviction. And I'm sorry, when it comes to the South, these laws are put in place not by accident. They are put in place by design. They are put in place to keep people, innocent or guilty, in prison. Because why? Those prison companies, whether private, public, or state, make money, especially the private companies. CCA here in Nashville. I've said this one time, I'll say it 100 times. CCA there's a reason why Corporate Corrections of America has a national headquarters. They have a contract with the state that charges for every person they hold in prison. CCA rakes in billions on prisoners, on profiting prisoners. And the funny thing is, the largest convictions in Nashville, Tennessee, marijuana convictions. That's it. I mean, yeah, opiates, you can go into opiates, you can go into fentanyl, you can go into meth, but the biggest thing has basically been marijuana consumption, marijuana intent to drug and sell, but pretty much it's surrounding marijuana. I've said it once, I'll say it again. If and when, and if there's ever a cold day in hell, is the day that Tennessee makes weed legal, CCA will lose billions or go bankrupt. Because by you making weed legal, you also have to go back and sit there and say, hey, for all those that have actually had convictions or indictments where loss of life did not lead to loss of life involving marijuana, they now have to be expunged. Those prisoners have to be released. Why am I saying all that? Because again, that will never happen. At least not. I would like to think not in this day and time. Not along with our state legislature, it's not going to happen. But same thing like related to Missouri. The fact of the matter is, with states like Missouri, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, for the simple fact of the matter is, they all have a system that's set up to where prosecution is swift and appealing takes forever and a day. And like he said, imagine how many more Lamont Johnsons are in the system right now for something they did not do. But at the same time, they are not given the same type of right to a fair trial as we've been told by our Constitution demands it. Although the really messed up part is that Missouri does not have a restitution law. That if you are convicted, that you should receive restitution. The man lost 28 years of his life, and now he has to basically start from scratch, while the state of Missouri says, all right, bye. Thank you for the 28 years of service. Thank you for your 28 years of working for pennies on the dollar while we profited off of it. It's not fair. But that man, his mindset, there's just, when you see a man's mindset like that, it is hard to argue with him. But as I said before, unequitable level. That being said, guys, we're going to move on to our feel-good segment because usually on the Frack we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes they can use faith in humanity, but hey, it's the middle of the week. It's hump day. Hopefully getting to Thursday, which is Thursday, or basically Friday Eve. And we will leave you guys out some good vibes and good vibrations. And I love to see when people's impact on a community reaches far and wide. And this man, being a dentist in Memphis of all places, definitely did just that.
History Month. This morning, we are spotlighting the amazing work of the man known as Dr. Q, a dentist whose smile transformations have gone viral on TikTok with more than 4.5 million likes. He's also a community hero and a part of a wonderful program down in Memphis. Alex Perez is there now with Dr. Q. Good morning, Alex.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Take a look behind me here. You have some of the amazing, wonderful people who are part of the Determined to Be a Doctor Someday program. Good morning, y'all. How you doing? That's the kind of energy they have been bringing to the table all morning, and we're excited to see it. Joining me now here, Michael, as you said, is Dr. Q, Quadarius Tony.
How you doing?
This program was so important to you. It inspired you. Tell us why you love this program.
I think my mom sent me a picture the other day, and it was back in 2012. And I was here almost over a decade ago. And I just see so many mentorship. And I'm so grateful for my mentors, Dr. Rosenthal, Dr. Payne, who really just showed me the way, showed me what we can do. So it was great. I love Determined to Be a Doctor Someday.
Talk about the excitement that when it comes to seeing someone who looks like you.
Oh my gosh.
Studying this field.
Oh my gosh.
Inspiring you.
Well, I'm the first doctor in my family.
Congratulations.
And I really didn't know what it looked like. I really didn't know what it looked like. And first of all, thank you, Black History Month. You know what I mean? Because just seeing someone that looked like me, we connected. She was like, I look like you. I'm from the same community as you. I've been through the same things as you. I connect with you. And it just felt so genuine. And just seeing that every day, I was like, I have to be great. I have to be in a place where I can serve and where I can show people like you can do it too.
And today is not just necessarily about celebrating the group, but it's about sort of thinking about the future and moving forward a little bit more too, right?
Absolutely. We're definitely thinking forward.
These people here don't know it, but there's a little surprise for them.
Yeah, we have a surprise. So one thing I want to say, could you come forward, Dr. Rosenthal? On behalf of the
founder of the program here.
Right, the founder of the program. You've been so monumental in my life, you and Dr. Payne, and I'm so grateful. I never thought I would be here. I genuinely don't. But God has been blessing me. And I'm like, let me be a blessing to you, So we have a check for $8,000. I think we've been doing the give backs all weekend, and this is a major give back I want to give back because I want to see people come after me. I want to see the kids understand that they can do it too. You can be great in your own lane.
Dr. Q, hold on to that emotion because we have a surprise for you. What you don't know is that while you brought these $8,000 for this much-deserved group here today to keep them going, we want to surprise you. You've done so much, your commitment, your dedication. We want America to know what you are like. So let's take a look and listen to who Dr. Q is.
Smiling brings joy. It brings happiness. It brings peace. It brings love into a person.
For Quadarius Tony, also known as Dr. Q, a smile is so much more than just a warm welcome. The 27-year-old Memphis native has been running Art of Aesthetics for more than 2 years, using dentistry to help change lives.
Dr. Q's humble spirit. He remains a people person and he remains a servant at heart.
Dr. Q's white coat dreams starting over a decade ago when he became part of the program called Determined to Be a Doctor Someday.
Dr. Q was one of our very first participants. And when I tell you he stood out among all of them.
I saw it in him from the beginning. He was a leader.
After posting dentistry content that went viral on social media, his work even attracting celebrities like Grammy-nominated rapper Glorilla. The rapper sending us this message.
My good friend, Dr. Q, the one responsible for my smile. And I just want to let y'all know that anything you put your mind to, you can do it.
But Dr. Q's road to success was not an easy one. According to the American Dental Association, just under 4% of dentists nationwide are Black. Dr. Q's now hoping to use his work to change those disparities, dedicating his own time and giving back to Determined to Be, which is aimed at exposing young people to healthcare professions.
I want him to just keep being the best version of him, and he's doing a great job, and I just want to congratulate him.
Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you're on a glorious path. I mean, it's already set for you.
1, 2, 3.
Determined to be a doctor someday. You're smiling from ear to ear. Yes. Glorilla, your family, your friends, everybody in there. What's this feel like?
It feels amazing. You know, at this moment, it's a full circle moment. You know, just being where I started, it just brings joy to my heart. And I want to continue to do that for the youth behind me. I'm so proud of them, just seeing that they're trying, to figure out what to do in life,
And Dr. Christina, tell us quickly, this money, how important is it? What will it do?
It's amazing. It will definitely aid our programming, our scholarships, and it's even more touching that it comes from you.
Well, you guys heard of the rule of threes, right? Well, we have one more surprise because, that would make it 3.
Yes.
Well, Waterpik, the most trusted name in water flossers, they help you get all the way in the back when you can't get all the way back there. Well, they've decided they're so inspired by your work, your dedication, they are donating.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing.
$1,000. So we have 2 checks for you now right here. That's a total of $18,000, everybody. You can see the emotion. Dr. Q, thank you for your inspiration and continuing to fight for all of us. And thank you for your dedication. Everybody, let's thank Dr. Q one more time. Guys, I hope you can feel the energy in the room. It's palpable. Everyone here is excited, and I hope you guys can feel that excitement all the way back in New York, guys.
We certainly do, and please give them our best.
And again, you just love when you get to see folks who are dedicated, who are literally and figuratively just happy about their impact. And like I said, especially with dentistry. I used to hate dentists. I used to hate going to dentists because as a kid, I never liked going to the dentist because to me, well, let's just say one bad trip with nitrogen gas and me talking to Elmo. But again, neither here nor there. Want to give that man his props because again, for what he's trying to do, he's trying to change the culture. He's trying to change the narrative. He is trying to show the next generation that, hey, if I can do it, so can you. And again, I can't even begin to stress how many times, but as a good friend of mine, Demetrius has said, representation matters, and it matters greatly. That being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here. I do want to shout out to my buddy Vaughn at BigBZA. Which you can find him, BigBZA on all socials, where he does have his TikToks and his YouTube beats. Yes, he has beats for sale, but definitely check him out, BigBZA everywhere. As for yours truly, guys, I am BlackFox447 on all socials. You can like, and follow me. I usually get reviews on everything that I watch, that I play, that I read, that I see. Sometimes gym stuff because I'm trying to motivate myself, trying to be in shape or out of a shape. Yeah, let's go with that. But I try to do my best. At the same time, guys, the link at the bottom and make that just a wee bit bigger for you guys to see it. If you copy and paste that into your browser, take you my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, off on this podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. Let people know what's going on. Let me know if you like what I've done with the show. Do you like it? Do you don't like it? Do you hate it? I still want to know. Interaction is key. I mean, I just don't want to think that I'm, talking just to myself, although I do talk to myself. But hey, sometimes you have to have a conference. But that also being said, guys, if you are traveling, if you haven't noticed, COVID's back up. Transmission rates are high again. So if you're going to an area that's, or if you're traveling or you're doing a lot of traveling and if a lot of areas congealed or congested, please wear a mask. Please protect yourself. If you feel the least bit sick, feel the least bit sick. Thank you for watching me this far. Please stay home because, again, when you stay home, you protect yourself and protect others. We help out our brethren in the nursing and doctor profession because they are doing the Lord's work right now with the hours and shortages and that entire mess, but still trying to keep people safe and healthy and, most importantly, alive. So please wear a mask on that. Aside from that, guys, before I get to my closing, I will say this all the time. There is no competition. Everybody's lane is different. If someone gets there before you or someone gets there overnight before you, it's completely okay. It's their time. There is a reason why we're all running different races, but as long as you stick to yours, you are going to make it to your end goal. So what am I saying at this point? There is no competition, simply only you. But know that I am rooting for you. I will promote for you. I will be your biggest cheerleader because at the end of the day, I want to see everybody win. I want to see everybody give a hand up instead of a hand down because we only move forward when we are unified with one purpose. Simply put. At the same time, about my being on social, I'm a very friendly person. I love talking with people, having conversations. I just have simply one rule. Don't be a dick. Now, the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first black four-star military general, electing our first black woman to the fourth congressional district of Virginia in first time in history. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up about our paychecks? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.